one of the criticisms that Hide-Seek has received, actually it turns out to be one of the gentler criticisms, particularly by my new best friend, Jed Pearl, is that the exhibition is reductionist. And Jonathan and I, who think we're both very complicated characters, weren't being reductionist, and we're interested in things like the intersection of gender, race, sexuality, and politics. So I'm delighted now that we have Dinah Linden here today to talk to us about Martin Luther King. She's a social historian of American art with expertise in art and politics. She's working on a book ambitiously on City of Promises, the history of Jews in New York City, as well as one on Ben Shahn, the avatar of political art in America. And I'd like to welcome her today. Thank you, to restore complexity to Hide-Seek.
With all our discussions of the importance of archives, I have to acknowledge that one of the things I love about archives is that you get to go in, handle these documents in a way we can't often handle paintings, so they usually give you those little white Mickey Mouse gloves. And the beauty that we've lost with email, this is almost like my anti-technology speech to explain why I'm going to spaz when I have to start doing these slides, but the beauty of handwriting. For all of us who used to send letters back and forth in the anticipation and the less pressure, not the email was sent 5 minutes ago, what part of the artist's work and handwriting and signatures are in itself a profound expression, and it's one we're losing. And I just encourage, probably one of the only art historian / mother who documents all her kids' artwork. Everything has to have a date. And in fact, I had, living vicariously, I had Jonathan write a little, an art historian's statement on one of my daughter's early drawings. I've got a little portfolio going. She had, this is for all you artists, this is the way to make it. We went to an art gallery exhibit, and she just, why are all of these works? I can have a work. She's about 5 then. So she went home, and she created this wonderful, Jonathan said it was wonderful. So, and it was great because this is how you get exhibited. She gave it to the gallery owners. And she went up, found the place on the wall she wanted it to be. It was an abstracted view of a rabbit's rear end. And she dressed in bunny ears for the opening. And it was great. There was this whole little vitrine, and she pushed all the sculptures on the vitrine out of the way. She put her piece right there. So that somehow is a way of saying, how do I get, okay. My first PowerPoint, my second. Can someone tell me? Wait. How do I go from there to? Because I sent it in. Okay. Yes.
Why am I not?
There I am. Okay. Okay. I don't know why people are mumbling like there's something up here that should not be up here, so tell me. Wait. Go to slideshow. Okay. Guess who refuses to own a digital camera? Okay. First off, I would like to thank David for his introduction. I am one of those people, one of many people, I should say, who read his work on Charles Wilson Peele. Jonathan and I were debating. I kept saying, well, I'm more of an Americanist. I'm not really a modernist. And he was like, we're all Americanists. And I just threw out to him, and for some of you, this will make sense. I just said to him, Lily Martin Spencer. And he goes, all right, so yeah, we're different kind of Americanists. 19th century genre painter. Really kind of. But I want to correct David. I wish I was here just to speak about Martin Luther King. I'm speaking about the artist William Christopher, sometimes known only as George Tucker's lover, and Christopher's interpretation of the civil rights movement and his relationship to Martin Luther King. I just really want to quickly thank, this work began a few years ago. It's very much a work based in the archives of American art, or come from, and I'm grateful to Jonathan Weinberg, because Jonathan, who always helps people out and is very true to his friends, told Bob Cosolini, who was organizing the George Tucker exhibition, that he knew of an art historian who works on post-45 figurative artists, and Bob wanted me to work on Tucker and Ben Shahn, and I was like, no more Ben Shahn. And he introduced me to the work of William Christopher, and then, of course, Jonathan Katz, who's a sweetheart. And I thank him for inviting me. For many years, Jonathan and I have had this debate about what do we do of our life, social justice, art history. And I think in this exhibition, Jonathan has found a way to bring his social ideals and politics and activist, yet in a suit, to the gallery walls. I think it's a beautiful marriage of both. Now, everyone tell me, what do I do next to get to the next image?
Push an arrow.
What arrow?
You just go like that.
Oh, you're better at this than me.
Yeah.
Oh, bad. Okay. Okay. I am a man. The slogan of the Memphis sanitation strike of 1968, as we see here on placards worn by the strikers. I am a man. Why such insistence about what's obvious to our eyes, that these people are men? On one level, the imperative claiming of one's identity is the demand for others to recognize the dignity and humanity of all African American men in Memphis. These are two later reinterpretations of the Memphis strike signs by Glenn Linden. I am a man was met by white Memphis itself, who saw itself as racially progressive, and they were shocked by the slogans. But Memphis was a city in 1968 where token integration had replaced segregation, and the enlightened mayor still publicly referred to Black residents as my Negroes. Does anyone have water? My personal assistant. But on another level, the slogan, I am a man, alludes to the ongoing dispute, the definition of what it means to be a man in American society. The slogan resonated with the sanitation workers since its words echoed that of the Delta Blues, that of Muddy Waters' mannish boy with his assertive refrain, which I will not sing, I'm a man, spelled M, A-N, no B child. I'm a man, Muddy affirms, in his assertive refrain, although he was called boy. His deep-throated growl lets us know that it is his sexual prowess with women that was proof positive of his manhood. That was one way to assert, to prove one's masculinity. In addition to the bedroom, a second way was the battlefield and bloodshed of war, the battlefield, thank you, the proving ground for manhood. On left, this is a photograph of William Christopher, the painter I'm going to talk to you about today. This is in his own handwriting. It's like an old Polaroid photo, we can't make those anymore, that are among his archives. And this is him. I got the back view, but if you go up to Jonathan Weinberg's exhibition, I also think in Jonathan Katz and David Ward's, you get the front view. He was a stunning, well, draped, stunningly handsome man, all the more handsome when he went white in his hair, a little shock of white. Probably 3 people, I would assume, not to put you down, probably have heard of this artist. He died very young, and most of his works have disappeared. Today, I'm going to talk to you both about the writings and the paintings of artist William Bill Christopher. And as I said, I'm relying a lot on his papers at the Archives of American Art, which Bill Christopher Bob Cosolini gave to me. And also from a diary that I found, which was really a blast, among the Martin Luther King papers at Boston University. The librarian archivist didn't even know what they had, so that was quite exciting. In his diary of 1963, Christopher plots out and sketches a series of paintings dedicated to Dr. Martin Luther King and the events of the Civil Rights Movement over the course of 1963. He gave many of his paintings from this series to individuals, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And there are these moments in the archives. I'm holding this letter, and it comes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., acknowledging receipt of a painting. And it's one of those moments I'm like, look at this. And you remember not to steal anything. Many others of his paintings were either purchased by collectors or by museums, the majority of which are now lost, and the King family has no idea where their painting wound up. It's least of their troubles. In his diary of 1963, Bill Christopher refers to paintings by Titian and Caravaggio as he explored his own use of light and dark in his paintings. He thought about how both artists would at times use a ruddy palette when painting, and he examined mirrors and masks as traditional artistic props. But the real inspiration for Bill Christopher's work was not found in Jansen's art history or within museums, but rather his artistic inspiration and his artistic purpose he found in the streets of Memphis, the words of Dr. King, Christian scripture, the water hoses and dogs that Bull Connor ordered aimed at Black men, women, children in Birmingham. And finally, Christopher drew upon his own childhood growing up white male in the South. On the left is a sketch from his diary, and you see in honor of Dr. King. A knock-knock joke from the Civil Rights era. Question: what has 4 eyes and doesn't see? The answer: Mississippi. Political pundits, poets, essayists, activists, and artists speak of blindness versus sight, light versus dark, visible versus invisible, and whiteness versus blackness to describe the segregated South and the struggle, I'd say importantly ongoing, for racial equality in America. The references and uses of masks and masking traditions are numerous throughout African and African American culture. The poet Paul Laurence Dunbar, who there's a portrait of him in the portrait gallery, not in the exhibition, famously began his 1896 poem, "We Wear the Mask," with the lines, "We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes." In memoirs and novels, Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man describes the experience of being invisible to white society, and in a manner, how the narrator is invisible to himself. Lillian Smith, I'd have to have all these like taglines to identify the players. Lillian Smith, white, Southern lesbian, addressed white privilege in her 1940 book, which is an incredible book if no one's ever read it, called Killers of the Dream. She asks, why don't we see this? Is there a tendency to blindness in those who overvalue their whiteness? Sometimes I think so. Even those who cannot be called racist, there is blindness. As a child, Smith learned, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son so that we might have segregated churches in which it was my duty to worship each Sunday. I learned it is possible to be a Christian and a white Southerner simultaneously, and to pray at night and ride a Jim Crow car the next morning, and to feel comfortable in doing both. In 1962, in The Fire Next Time, James Baldwin insisted, I think somewhat generously, that racial blindness extinguished the souls of whites and blacks alike, writing, "A vast amount of white anguish is rooted in the white man's equally profound need to be seen as he is, to be released from the tyranny of his mirror." It's just hard for me to relate that to like George Wallace in the 60s. All of us know, whether or not we are able to admit it, that mirrors can only lie, that death by drowning awaits one there. Love takes off the mask that we fear we cannot live without, and know we cannot live within. This mask is a Nigerian 19th century mask called an Iko Eso. Christopher did a painting with the same title. There are no sketches, and of course, it is now lost. False face and masks false face and masks shields one's race, and in the works of painter William Christopher, subterfuge can often be survival. In the world of African American South, as men, a sideways glance could result in murder, and I think of young Emmett Till. Mirrors and masks function in a manner as a portable closet. Mask mirrors Christopher's own desire to see, to question, and contribute to the freedom struggle, or his motivation from 1963 onwards. Now, Christopher, as I said, it's probably best remembered, not yet, as the partner of George Tooker, who is like 100 now? He's still alive, right? What? Closer to 90. Oh, okay. I salted him. He's closer to 90, still partying, still painting. It's jet lag. William Christopher began the tumultuous year of 1963 with a profound and new sense of artistic and social purpose. In Heartland, Vermont, where he and Tooker had moved from Brooklyn, why leave Brooklyn, I do not know, but Christopher taught at Dartmouth. Christopher took out a new blank diary, and in cursive hand he wrote, "I want to do a series of paintings dedicated to Dr. Martin Luther King. Such a wonderful man helping all of us. I must do it even though I realize the difficulties that may arise. it does seem that all responsible people are keeping quiet, and after all, are not we artists responsible? He continues, I am responsible to the spirit, and Martin Luther King is the leading spirit of us. I'm so proud to be from Georgia, where he can help. Perhaps I can help. I must put everything I can in them, the paintings. I must make them my finest work. They must not be sentimental, but bold, to the point. I feel needed as an artist like I haven't felt before. A white Southern Christian gay man, William Christopher's commitment to the struggle for racial equality required that he cast off the privileges of his race, class, and religion, and the powers and privileges that he earned growing up in the South as his birthright. In his diaries and paintings, while Christopher noted the importance in his life of several Black gay artists, men and women, he never writes about his own sexual identity or any sense of marginalization. He stated, in fact, that his only hindrance was the issue of race. At the core of the civil rights struggle, as we will see, were two diametrically opposed definitions of manhood and masculinity, both cemented in masculinist rhetoric, which upholds the male and debases the female. Since the time of slavery, the struggle for Black equality had specific implications for gender relations and gender identity in America. At turning points in the movement, both the segregationists and civil rights activists alike used the same masculinist rhetoric and images. They're interchangeable, tapping into implicit assumptions in America about race, gender, and sexuality. In order to accomplish this, Dr. King's civil rights movement insisted upon silencing or removing from public view key leaders who were gay. For example, Bayard Rustin, who was rendered invisible to the public, and it was Rustin who trained King in Gandhian philosophy of nonviolence, and we would not have had the civil rights movement without the input and shaping and the ideas of Bayard Rustin. But he, since he was gay, he didn't fulfill society's definition of manliness, and so King thought it better that he stepped to the side. As Christopher worked in his studio, he chronicled the events of 1963 almost day by day as the world in America was exploding. 1963, in his inaugural speech that was written by a Klan member, newly elected Governor George Wallace of Alabama, where the governor recently said that all Christians are his brothers, and if you don't worship Christ, you're not his brother, or sister. So we've severed relations, I guess. George Wallace worked the crowd before him into cheers and applause as he proclaimed, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. That same year, when Medgar Evers, the NAACP leader, was shot down in his driveway in Jackson, Mississippi, Christopher mourned the loss and made note in his diary. On the left is Birmingham from about 64 by Christopher, and then also famous work by Andy Warhol. I ran out of time to put those nice little labels that everyone else did, but I decided this is both an Art History 101 quiz and do you know your history of African American civil rights. David Ward better do well. Birmingham, Alabama, the place that Dr. King said was the most segregated city in America. And what day did he call the most segregated day of the week? But Sunday, where people who were worshiping split by race. Christopher chronicles as he paints, and he notes the violence in the streets. He writes on April 16th, the most incredible thing has happened. Dr. King has written a letter from his jail cell. We will come to cherish this letter and his words, Christopher notes. This is those moments for, I guess, me personally, that there's this connection of what William Christopher is enabling me, you, I hope, to relive and experience day by day. So on a day that was November 22nd, and he says, what a great morning this is, and you know that afternoon, Kennedy would be dead. So it's unfolding in time. 1963, that August, in the March on Washington, here on the Mall, Dr. King presented his I Have a Dream speech, and according to Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell, it was the march that drew national and international attention to the civil rights cause. This was a highlight where the official count was 250,000, and we know it had to be much more than that. The speech stirred people, moved people forward. It was a step forward, and yet just 18 days later in Birmingham, a church exploded from a bomb and 4 little girls were left dead. Increasingly during the civil rights era, images, Life magazine, Roy DeCarava's Sweet Flypaper of Life, 1955, which Langston Hughes wrote the text for, images, photographs were published in magazines and newspapers from all different groups and vantage points, impacting on public opinion, bridging distances, and also raising criticism. Malcolm X was quite conscious of the negative image concept that America, white America, held for Black America, and he advised Blacks never to accept images that have been created for you by someone else. It is always better to form the habit of learning how to see things for yourself. For Malcolm, it was not a question, am I not a man and a brother? It was an insistence. He recognized the force of a community, of a collective, not one person saying, may I have my rights, but a people coming together for what they deserved. Now, in the masculine rhetoric, in both the hands of white segregationists and Black activists, from the Nation of Islam to Dr. King's movement, to the Black Power Party, men and manhood was defined in relation to women. Women were shaped, they did not get to define themselves. On the left, Elijah Muhammad, he did not serve in World War II because he refused to serve a white man's government. And at this point, I think it's still Cassius Clay. He had not yet become Muhammad Ali. And on the right, Free Huey, the Black Panther Power movement. Masculinist definitions about women told women what they should fulfill. Women could not define themselves, and it's been said how within the civil rights movement, there was a lack of awareness of the feminist movement, and then yet in the early years of the feminist movement, white women suffered from a lack of awareness of the experience of race, Black race, people who were not also asking if they could work or bemoaning it because they had always worked. This is a sense of hypermasculinity. It's one built on violence, and according to James Baldwin, in America, violence is the path to manhood, but it's only the preserve of white man. So I ask, how do you become a man? I actually started typing that and Google, and I went, That's not what I wanted to see. That's not it. I mean, I never thought, you know, how do you become a woman? I don't know. Jonathan, on his 13th birthday, became a man, and then the next day had to go back to junior high. It doesn't make sense. Anyway. I've noted that sexual prowess is one way that you become a man. For others, for many, you achieved manliness and manhood through military service. Under FDR, minorities were recruited in the army, but the military remained racially segregated. I want to say to Truman, David? Yeah? Oh, sorry. It was? Truman. Okay. So what if you're Bayard Rustin, who is a pacifist, or George Tooker, who had ulcerative colitis, there's a little fact, or William Christopher, who suffered from sickliness his whole life. They were all either by choice or refused to enter the path towards manhood through the military. And pacifism and the weakness of a body were both seen as feminized, a lessening of oneself, being less than a man. But of course, many, don't ask. Many black men did serve during World War II. This is a beautiful piece by the late Michael Richards. He had a studio in the World Trade Center and was killed on September 11, 2001. He did a beautiful series in honor of the Tuskegee Airman. I have a little Tuskegee thing. I was so excited to see them at the inauguration. This is Tar Baby versus Saint Sebastian, 1999. And Richard used his own face, which then becomes almost like a death mask, in this soldier, and you can't see the feet, but he's lifting upwards to the sky, his body pierced by planes. The unsung heroes of World War II, such as the Black Panther, the 761st Tank Battalion, led by General Patton, which was known as the Black Panthers, and they were among the first to see the atrocities of Hitler's death camps. When the Black Panthers, the 761st Tank Battalion, joined the advancing Third Army, General Patton, I have to say I wanted to put a big Jasper Johns up here of a flag, and for those of you who saw the movie Patton with George C. Siegel, where he stands gruffly, but then I wasn't sure everyone had seen that movie. But Patton gruffly commanded his troop, "Men, you are the first Negro tankers ever to fight in the American Army. I don't care what color you are, as long as you go up and kill those Krauts son of a bitches." Which they did, but when the war was over and African-American soldiers came home to the States, their expectation of appreciation and a new recognition in America was soon denied. Despite the idealistic rhetoric of World War II, the racist realities of Cold War America prevented these men from achieving their place. As one veteran said, "We have won the military battle for democracy, but the fight is not over. Don't be satisfied with the way things were. Don't let anyone ever again tell you you are inferior because you are black. Be a man. We owe it to ourselves." But instead, what happened was post-World War II was a second surge of lynchings throughout America. And two individuals spoke up and formed a union to speak against lynching, hoping again to get legislation, and it was not passed. And these two men were Albert Einstein and Paul Robeson. Are you writing me a little note to say go faster? Oh, okay. So, all right. Another sketch. This issue of Manliness and Black Men in the 1960s came to the forefront again when Daniel Moynihan wrote at the time a report, How to Improve the Lot for African American Men, and he insisted, or he directed them to go serve in Vietnam, where so many white middle and upper class men got educational deferment. So the majority, a disproportionate number of black men served, were wounded, were killed, came home drug addicted, lost their foothold in society. Now, the second way you become a man is the control of women, and this was part of the ideas of the Citizens Council, which is sometimes referred to as the white-collar KK, and their big concern was race and sexual intermixing. And they had to meet this with armed resistance on behalf of their Southern white women. Race trumped class. So what was considered the lowest class Southern white woman was now a pure white Southern hood. The white men would mask their irrational fears and claims by putting on Klan's hoods, and again, rise in violence. It was a power struggle based on the demonization of black men, said one segregationist, I would gladly lay down my life to prevent mongrelization. Another warned that the mandate for integration masks its immoral agenda. The door to the schoolroom is the door to the bedroom. They found a very supportive ear in Eisenhower, who offered his opinion that these segregationists are not bad people. All they are concerned about is to see their sweet little girls are not required to sit along some big overgrown Negroes. Okay? I'm going to jump and get you through these images by William Christopher. So Christopher could not celebrate masculinity through war, through bloodshed, through the hypermasculine body. And so what he did was create series of paintings, many just black and white Xeroxes now, where he explores identity, truthfulness, removing masks, looking in the mirror. This is Dark Mirror, which was a gift to Dr. King, now lost, using very rounded female forms, pulling upon mask traditions. This painting is now at BU in the library there. This is removal of the mask. Each painting that he did was dedicated to Dr. King, but in addition, he acknowledged the importance of people he had known, all of whom were African American or Indian American. This was dedicated to the artist Ocelia Archer, an actress, a detail. This is Contemplation of the Mask, which is now at Dartmouth, and Ocelia. He acknowledged the importance of Richmond Barth and dedicated a work to him, saying that if he had not known Barth, he would not know the importance of making artwork. Dr. King invited Christopher to come and meet, in 1964, King was given a painting. The two men corresponded. Just to get another example of artists who inspired him, Buford Delaney. And what's really enjoyable about these documents, these diaries, is he is paying tribute and telling stories about famous artists, how Buford Delaney kind of opened him up to white privilege. And then it's, since Joe had spoken about gossip before, it's so rich with name dropping. He's having cocktails at the Smithsonian with Bricktop and hanging out with Sidney Poitier and saying bitchy things about the paintings of Bob Gwathmey, how they're very, I have to agree, very kind of, he says, yes, master looking. He leaves the studio at King's invitation in Selma in 1965, and he joins the March on Selma. This is called Time. Just flip over that. So as I rewrote and rewrote and rewrote and added notes to my talk, I realized I could not find a satisfactory end. And I realized that in part of that although I started this paper, I have to say, around the time our president was elected, and I was filled with hope, and yet I was living in California, and the right for gay marriage was overturned, and we had this statement of, I'm a proud American, I'm a disappointed Californian. And there's this language, this twinning together, as Bayard Rustin said, that the next primary march movement for civil rights is for gay and lesbian rights in America. And though Dr. King promised us that as a nation, as a people, we would get to the mountaintop, and he said he wouldn't make it with us, we have not in many ways. And especially in our promises to gay and lesbian Americans, we have just barely begun to answer the rhetoric. Thank you.